Welcome everyone to M365 UK March edition. This is in fact our 30th edition, so nice to have the trios today to kind of coincide with the M365 UK. So welcome to all the attendees, and this is a slightly special one in a sense that normally M365 UK is held on Wednesdays around 4 p.m. UK time. But as some of you may know, I try to do this in person in London here, and obviously with some domestic circumstances, rail strikes, etc., had to be called off. So hence online here we are. So we have a kind of a full evening there, really around 6 till 9 p.m. ish, with 3 sessions instead of 2. So some very good sessions here. So first of all, I'd just like to welcome our speakers, Lee Ford, Tom Morgan, and Leon Armston. So with great sessions that they've got around the introducing AI into your Microsoft Teams workflows, as well as Teams business to consumer connections, being have the web-based video interaction with your clients. So that's a great session to look forward to from Tom Morgan, and then obviously all about Microsoft Syntex from Leon Armston, the content AI. So coincidentally, even today, when we were planning for this particular sessions, and I had no idea with what Microsoft have announced today. Some of you may have tuned in with Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is basically enterprise-ready AI. So, do look it up on Microsoft.com. That details all the capabilities that's coming our way in our M365 apps and services. So yeah, nicely to kind of coincide with our AI capabilities in today's sessions with Lee, Tom, and Leon. So it's around 45-50 minutes. If it takes an hour, it doesn't matter. So very informal as ever. And so hopefully you kind of take away quite a lot from the sessions today. For those of you who know where I'm Chirag Patel, I run and organize M365 UK. techchirag.com is the best way to get to me. But generally, I work as a M365 consultant, delivering deployments, migrations, running a number of workshops, all around Teams, SharePoint related matters, and also work with a few gold partners in the UK, helping them deliver projects for their customers too as well. So been around for 20 odd years, kind of just try and stay relevant, really, like many of us, with all the tech changes and waves that's happening. But also part of it, one of the MVP voluntary movement, Viva Explorers, essentially learning, sharing all things to do with Microsoft Viva as well. So a few QR codes there for Twitter, LinkedIn. M365 UK is generally the hashtag for a lot of these things. So feel free to reach out, share, or any topics as well. So that'll be good. And then going for about a couple of years now, with over 1,000 meetup members, and again, sessionize.com, M365 UK is the the link if you would like to submit to speak at M365 UK. I've already got quite about half a dozen sessions, which I'm planning to kind of pick and at least try and plan out the events for the rest of the year. So watch out for those. But just want to say thank you for following M365 UK, and M365 UK YouTube channel is there, so feel free to subscribe. And as you know, this session is this event is being recorded, so I'll try and make that available on YouTube sometime this weekend. So hopefully you can share that to your colleagues and clients if need be. Right, so we'll just move over straight to Lee Ford, really. And I just wanted to kind of just say, Lee's been here before with M365 UK, and this is the second time. So, welcome, Lee. But, Lee's been MVP for the M365 development for almost three times now, and we've spoken at a few conferences, and obviously kind of really a development hat on it. And many of you will, do follow Lee through his blogs and his materials that he shared. So with that, I think, Lee, over to you, and looking forward to your session.
Okay.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Lee.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'll just quickly share my screen. Hopefully it works. Okay, so let's just make this.
Yes, good.
Hopefully, yeah, there we go. Cool. All right, perfect. Everyone can see it. So, yeah, thank you. My name is Lee Ford. This is an abbreviated title. Let's call it development lead, but it's a really long title. But anyway, I work for a company called Simity, based in the UK, of course, and I predominantly work in M365. So today I'm talking about introducing AI into your team's workflows. And just to start with a caveat, when I say team's workflows, for the sort of demo purposes, and obviously it's not a particularly long session, I'm not going to really introduce massive complicated workflows and trying to solve really complex business cases here. I'm just kind of showing you how AI and teams can work together. The actual examples here aren't really proper long workflows. They're more just, well, this is how it works. So if we just get started, so a bit about myself first before we start. So as I said, my name's Lee Ford. I'm based in Birmingham in the UK. You can find me on Twitter mainly. I've also on GitHub. I've got a blog which I occasionally write on. And like Chirag said, I'm an MVP in M365 development for 3 years, I think, so far. So I pretty much work with Microsoft technologies, mainly M365 and Azure. A little bit of Power Platform, but not that much. And I'd like to write code, so I don't like to just talk about code and kind of think about code, but actually write code is something I do like to do in work and out of work. I also like to do running when I can, if the knees and everything else are holding up. And yes, I do like to do a bit of DIY. It does kind of clear the mind. It's something I do enjoy. So the agenda. So tonight we're going to talk about obviously AI, and when I was thinking about this session, I didn't want to kind of just jump in at the deep end and assume what everyone knows what AI is and what it's capable of. The idea is that we want to kind of go from 0 to 100. So go through kind of what AI is, or what I think it is, what we can do with it, and how do we use it. So how can we take the AI and make something with it? And obviously, of course, the other half of this, to make this a Microsoft-y session, is obviously we need to talk about Teams as well. So how can we implement AI into Teams, and what can we do with that? So first thing is AI. We're not talking about the Steven Spielberg film from 20 odd years ago, as much as it's meant to have AI in. I can't actually remember the film that well, but it's obviously not what we're talking about. So what is AI? So AI is the ability for a machine to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. So, as it says, AI can be used for various purposes: speech recognition, computer vision, translation. And we know there's way more now. With things like ChatGPT and all these other good things, it solves a lot of problems that we didn't think could be solved by AI. So the idea here is that we're talking about intelligence, i.e., thinking for yourself. Obviously, that's generally a human trait. Obviously, if we make something artificially, it's still using effectively a brain. Let's call it a brain, but it's obviously not a real brain. It's a brain that we've programmed in a certain way to take the information that's we've provided it with and make a decision. And that's effectively obviously the way our own brains work from an intelligent. We have loads of inputs and we decide what we want to do with that. And obviously, if we're high intelligence, then we make better outputs, or better code, or better whatever we're looking to. The higher the intelligence, generally the higher the end product. And that's obviously the same with AI. So obviously AI is improving, we're feeding it more inputs, and we're getting better results from it. So that actual quote wasn't from me, that was from that's from Bing. So this is the Bing AI, I think it's preview still. What is AI? And that's what it's come back with. So that's obviously powered with OpenAI GPT, and it's just effectively just showing you, you can kind of ask a question, get a quote back. It's just a very, very simple AI interaction here. So there are lots of AI providers. One I'm going to talk about today is OpenAI. That's probably the most common one. I think it's the most talked about, certainly at the moment. Obviously, there's tens, thousands, I don't know, of other AI tooling and products and services, and yes, I could potentially go off and list some others and go into details on how they work, but today we're just going to talk about OpenAI and keep it in one kind of area of the AI kind of world. And the reason for that, obviously, I think a lot of people on this call probably know what OpenAI is, or know what ChatGPT is and whatnot. So if we quickly go over what OpenAI is, so it's an AI research and deployment company, and their mission is to create artificial intelligence that benefits all of humanity. Now, that's not actually an AI quote, that's what they say on their website. So, we'll have to trust them, I guess, that's what their mission is. But let's move on. So, what can you do with OpenAI? So, OpenAI, they offer different products and services. And I'm not going to list them all here, but these are some of them. So first one is DALL 2. This one's been out for a few months or maybe a year or so now, and it allows you to generate an image from a description. So you can say, draw me a picture of a dog, it'll draw you a picture of a dog. GPT 3.5. So this is a fairly recent one. This is what we call a natural language conversation and tasks. So when we're talking about natural language, we're not talking about having to talk like a really big to the point. You can kind of say, oh, draw me sorry, not draw me a picture, but like tell me a story about so and so, and make it funny, and make it about 5 paragraphs long. So that's like natural language. We're not having to give it a bulleted list to say make it funny, another bullet point, 5 paragraphs. You can kind of just use, as if you were talking to someone, asking someone to do that task. You could ask the AI in natural language to do that, and also the responses generally come back in a natural language as well. So the other one I think everyone knows probably on this call is ChatGPT. It's everywhere, everyone's talking about it, everyone's going crazy for it, and yes, it's probably, I think probably the thing that's probably put OpenAI in the kind of on the map for kind of not sort of die-hard techies in AI, but the general sort of population. I think a lot of people know what ChatGPT is, but probably don't even know what M365 is. It's just kind of it's pervasive at this point. It's got everywhere. So ChatGPT is a trained AI model for in-depth conversations. So like with GPT 3.5, you can ask it things in a natural way, and kind of have an ongoing conversation with it. And say, get it to do tasks for you or write some code or whatever. And that is based on GPT 3.5 as it stands. And then final one we'll quickly cover is Whisper. So it's a speech-to-text service. So you can quickly give it, a recording of something, and maybe it'll transcribe it. Or if you want it to be transcribed in a different language, so let's say you recorded a video and you want some, Spanish subtitles or something, you could feed it that audio, and then it would transcribe that into a different language for you. Okay, so let's quickly cover ChatGPT. Let's get that one out of the way. So ChatGPT is not to be confused with GPT 3.5. GPT 3.5 is a model for AI, but it's not a product or that you would pay OpenAI to use like a finished product. So that's where ChatGPT comes in. That is effectively, you don't need to know what an API is. You don't need to know what GPT 3.5 is. ChatGPT, you log in, you maybe pay if you want the premium or the pro license. Oh, was it plus and pro? I don't know. I'm confused. There's too many pluses and pros and premiums. You pay for the service that you acquire. And you don't have to think about it. You just kind of type away, and it comes back with what it needs to come back with. You can't really put that in your own applications. Now, yes, you can technically embed it into like Slack or Teams or whatever, but you can't build it into an existing application that maybe you have built. That's not going to work. So what you can do is you can take ChatGPT and you can recreate it using the 3.5 AI models that ChatGPT is based on also, and build that into your own applications. So let's quickly go to GPT 3.5. So as I said, it understands and generates natural language. So you can ask it a question as if you're asking a human that same question, and it will understand what you're asking. You don't have to be really specific or kind of if you're thinking of something like when you talk to Google or Siri, it will, you kind of like got to be to the point or kind of ask it in a very specific way, otherwise it won't understand what you're asking. That's not a problem here. You can kind of just tell it what you want, and what it gives you back is also pretty natural. It's pretty easy to understand. It's not a load of gibberish that's been scraped from the web and kind of hacked together to kind of almost sound like English, but it's kind of a bit broken. What you get back is, it's for some people it's indistinguishable from someone writing something or having something generated with an AI. That with 3.5 it's very, very similar. So this is achieved using different models, and we'll get onto those in a second, and they're used for different tasks and they are priced differently. So we'll quickly go over it. There are actually more models than what's on this table, but essentially we have GPT 3.5 Turbo at the top, and then we have DaVinci, and then there's also ones like Ada and Babbage and Curie, which are technically, I think, GPT 3, not 3.5, and they're all used for different tasks, or they're kind of, some are better at other tasks than others, but ultimately the recommendation is now that you would generally use GPT 3.5 Turbo for everything that you would want to do using these AI models. There's no real reason to want to use DaVinci, and in almost every scenario, the recommendation is that you use the Turbo. Also, the Turbo is 1/10 of the price of DaVinci, so it's better and it's cheaper. There's no, as far as I can see, there's no real reason why you'd want to go with DaVinci if you could get what you needed out of Turbo. We'll get into how tokens work and how, what 1,000 tokens means, and 496 tokens the max request. We can go through all that in a little while, but just to show you there are different models, but generally we're using 3.5 Turbo. 3.5 Turbo is what's powering ChatGPT.
Quick question, Lee, if I can interrupt,
yes,
if that's all right. We've got a hand up. I'm hoping that's a question from Hamad.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to, if you can take a question or two, if anyone.
Sure, yeah, go for it,
yeah. Go ahead, Hamad.
Hi guys, how are you? A very nice presentation, by the way, in terms of a ChatGPT and OpenAI. Only thing I would be saying that, remember in their statement, it says that, we really want to present this AI model, okay, for whole of humanity, right? Then that's a very noble goal. Actually, it's a very noble goal.
It is.
The only thing I would try and put your attention towards is that, do you really think that the way humanity is right now, either globally or even either globally or in different parts of the world, do you really think that society is a little bit ready for
that's a deep question to ask me. I can try it. Yeah, I think ultimately the AI is trained, and I think certainly as they're going along, they really are taking precautions and safety measures to make sure that the AI behaves responsibly to pretty much everyone, and irrespective of what country or race or belief or whatever. I think the idea is that it's not got any bias in it, and it also has no it kind of avoids things like being able to, you can't say, oh, who do you think's better at this or this person, those sort of things. It's been programmed in a way to avoid conflict, or effectively kind of trying to pick a side or do things. I don't know. It's trying to do the best it can with those sort of things.
Yeah, I think, and it is that is one of the things. I mean, typically I tend to put it around, the metaphorically, if you like, the equivalent of that is, say, for the budgets wise, in the UK, like you have the Office of Budget Responsibility, right? So there is that responsibility governance organization where this is how the AI is meant to work. Of course, it's all based on the trained models. What you put in is what you get out. But ultimately, I think if it helps solve problems, cuts the time to do, but it's never going to be perfect. Sometimes you might not even use it, right? But yeah, I agree, Lee. I think it's slightly overloaded question, but yeah, I think it's
I'm trying my
worth
best to answer. I mean, I have used it, but I've not really used it. To try and solve many
thanks for clarifying,
problems like that. But yeah, no, absolutely. Okay.
Great. Go ahead. Thanks.
No worries. All right. So we've covered the models. Now we'll get into the tokens, which was on this slide where we're talking about, 2 cents to 1,000 tokens, or even less for the newer models. And we'll quickly go over what a token is. So it can, on the previous slide, it said it can have a maximum of 4,096 tokens per request or interaction, let's call it. And what is a token? So a token is a unit of measurement on how the AI model interprets a request and creates a response. So for every request, there's 4,096 tokens or units of measurement that can be used. So a token is consumed for each chunk of text. So there's no easy way to actually say what's a chunk of text. Is it one letter? Is it a word? It depends. So for example, in some areas, one chunk of text might be a single letter. It might be the letter A, but then it might be the word pear, could also be one token. But then in some words or some languages, the word apple could be 4 tokens. There's no easy put each individual character as 1 token, and that's how we calculate it nice and easy. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. It depends how easy or how much compute is consumed the AI reading text and determining what the word is and what you're asking. So tokens are split up into prompt tokens and completion tokens. So when we mean a prompt token, that means if we're asking it something, that's the prompt. So that's what it's got to read. So if you imagine we're asking it, can you do this, blah, 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 that's a prompt. And then the completion token is the response it gives back to us. So the more prompt tokens we use, so the more we ask of it, the less it's got to give back. So for example, if the prompt token is using 4,000 tokens, and there's only 96 tokens left, it's going to end up with an incomplete response. So one example is, halfway through the response, it's cut off. So you don't get the full answer back. So that's GPT 3.5, and don't worry, we'll come back to that one in a little while. So the next OpenAI one that we're going to cover today is DALL 2. And this one is where you can generate an image. So for example, like I said, a dog eating an ice cream wearing a hat, that's what it generates. So I think the dog's probably real, but I think the ice cream and the hat are probably generated. And that is priced similar to the thing where you have like the request size for the GPT 3.5. Here it's actually even simpler, really. We've got the size of the image. It impacts how much it costs. So obviously the bigger the image, the more it's going to cost to generate that image. So quick word on GPT-4, which got announced 2 days ago, I think. So I had this slide deck all perfected, all done, and then they go and add GPT-4 into the mix. So unfortunately, I don't have GPT-4 to show you, or in any of the demos today, because it's just been announced and it's not fully released. So there is kind of a pseudo release in ChatGPT Plus, but there is no public API, so I can't kind of show you it in an application that I've built because it's not fully released. And even in ChatGPT Plus, there are certain things that aren't working, or it's slow. So it's not really a final product at this point. It's almost like an alpha or a beta. But ultimately, what they're looking to change is that making it even safer. So we're just having that question around how do we make sure it's benefiting humanity and not introducing bias and not performing tasks that it shouldn't perform. Those sort of things, that they're making it safer and putting more guardrails in, and kind of being conscious of that people will try to abuse it and try and kind of make it more wise to that kind of behavior. So it's also more accurate and reliable in giving answers. So it's not perfect at the moment, certainly in 3.5. So you will ask it a question and sometimes it will get confused, or it will go off on a tangent, and you're like, that's not really what I asked about. And that's, you know, again, GPT-4, they're looking to give it a lot more information. So we're talking about, you know, intelligence is based on how much information you give it. So the more information you give it, the more entry points, the more inputs, the more accurate and reliable the things you get out. So I think, I can't remember the exact number, but I think something like 20 times more kind of inputs have been put into GPT-4 than GPT 3.5. So it is effectively, if it's given more data, then in theory, and it's been trained better, then it should give out more reliable answers. So it can also handle much larger text inputs. So at the moment, I think it's around 3,000 words for GPT 3.5, and it's much larger now for GPT-4. So you can kind of, rather than just giving it, you know, can you summarize this paragraph or these 3 paragraphs? It could now be, can you summarize this book? So you know, it's much larger. One thing that was shown as well, you can support images as input. So you can have an image and you can ask it, well, what's happening in this image, or what happens if you did this to this image? So I think one of them was, there was a bunch of balloons held down by string, and you know, it was fed as an input, that image, and then the question was, what would happen if someone cut the string? And it was like the balloons would fly away, that sort of thing. So here, going back to the large text inputs, gone around 3,000 with ChatGPT. Now we've got 2,500 words for GPT-4. So yeah, you can kind of give it a lot more information and get a lot back from it. So obviously that's you know, OpenAI and AI. So how does that factor into Teams? So AI can be used in pretty much any Teams app scenario. So we're not kind of limited to, oh, well, it's got to be a certain type of Teams app, or it's, you know, it can only be used as a bot, or you know, or a tab. It pretty much can be used in all of them. So what we have to remember is it's just an API. So if you've got an app that already calls an API, let's say it calls Microsoft Graph, you know, this is no different really. I think the only real difference is it has to be done server side. You can't really do it in the client because there is an API key. But ultimately, the idea is that, you know, if you've got a back-end service calling another API already, there's no reason why you can't then, you know, add this to your existing app, and then add it in. You know, if that app's in Teams, then away you go. So I've got a couple of demos I'm going to show you today, and this is kind of just the very, very basic outline of what the infrastructure looks like. So we've got a user using the Teams client. We've got something called an Azure bot, and the bot is there to handle the interaction between Teams and the backend service. Don't have to do it this way. This is just how I've kind of simplified it for demo purposes. And then our backend service in this scenario is an Azure function, and that then is effectively handling the request. So the kind of general structure is the user would send a request. You know, let's say it's you know, it sends a message, a chat message, that sends it to the Azure bot. The Azure bot sends it to our Azure function, which is a backend service. That then calls the OpenAI API. That responds with the details, you know, the AI response, and then that gets fed back down through the Azure bots to the Teams client. So as I said, that's what we're looking to do for both of our demos today. But this isn't like the only way you can do it. It's just the way I've kind of just quickly explained what I'm going to be showing. So we're going to go through 2 examples today. So the first one is a Teams message extension, also called messaging extension. It's used interchangeably. So I'm going to call it message extension. And you've probably all used the one. So, you know, if you click on a message and you click the 3 dots and then you get more actions, you know, you get some sort of actions that you can interact with that message from. So, you know, you can create a poll, or you know, immersive reader, or, you know, whatever. Those actions are message extensions. So it can be used in a personal chat. It can also be used as part of a team as well. So here's an example one. So this isn't one that I've created, but, you know, if you wanted to, let's say, check the weather or insert the weather into a channel, you could, you know, search for the weather and then insert that into the chat. That's a message extension. Okay, so how does that work with AI? So I'm just going to come up with like I say, the workflows I've come with today are not the most complicated ones. They're more jokey really, but just to show you how these things work. So there's no easy way for me to find an obscure picture or photo that I want to insert to a Teams conversation. So I want a picture of a dog eating an ice cream wearing a hat. Well, I'm not going to be able to find that, you know, on a SharePoint site or you know, in Giphy probably. So I'm going to have to like generate that. So the solution is I would use the DALL 2 with a message extension to generate an image for the Teams conversation and then insert into the conversation. So demo time. Let's just come out of PowerPoint and then we can get started. So I'm just going to quickly find it. So it will be this one. So I'm going to quickly show you what I've done. So this is something I made earlier. Now the way it works is I can click 3 dots here and I can create the so it's something called a DALL 2 message extension, and in here I can say some people watching a tech demo. Okay. Now it will go off and it will generate it. I'm playing to the demo gods because okay, all right, so some people are watching it. Okay, now at this point I could edit it and change what I'm asking for, or I can send it. If I click send, it then gets sent into the chat, and that's it really. So that's a real simple demo, and I'll quickly go over how it works. Ultimately that's grabbing the image from generating the image from DALL, and then I'm just inserting that image into the chat. From a sort of Azure perspective, we have the Azure bot, which I already mentioned. That's pretty much the only thing that sits in Azure. Now, obviously, if I was running the Azure functions, I could run it in here as well inside the resource group, but I'm running that locally, so I can show you that in use. Now, if I quickly look at the bot itself, I'll quickly go through what we've got in here. We just have a name for the bot, and from a configuration point of view, it's pointing at my local machine through a tunnel, and that's pretty straightforward. And then from a channels perspective, I have a Microsoft Teams channel enabled, and that's about it from a configuration point of view. There's not a whole lot in here. I think it's a standard pricing, but it could be free if you wanted it to be. It's it's pretty cheap. So that's it from an Azure point of view. And then if I quickly bring up the code, which will be this one, we have an Azure function. So if you were noticing a minute ago, we had the /API/messages that gets sent to my API tunnel, which is then passed through into this messages Azure function. And in here I have something called an activity handler. I won't go through the rest of this because this doesn't really add anything to it, but the ultimate thing here is this activity handler. Now the activity handler is what I do with the AI. So first, these activities are basically depending on what the user and team has done, depends on which activity handler gets called. So the first one is handle opening of the message extension. So that means when someone clicks the 3 dots and then clicks DALL 2, what do we do? So in this case, we're generating the prompt card response, which is down here, and effectively I'm creating a prompt card that is a JSON adaptive card, and it's basically giving me an input to say, give me the description of the image that you want. Okay, so that's pretty much all that is. If I go back up here, we then have the handle submission of a message extension. So this is where the person has then entered, I want a dog, or I want a plate of cheese, or whatever it is. And this is where we start using the API. So we create the OpenAI API key, and then we do it. This is how simple it is. You literally do OpenAI.createImage, and that creates an image based on the description. So the prompt bit is the description of the image, text description of the desired image, and it's up to 1,000 characters. And then that's how many images I want. So I want one image, and I want it 512 by 512. Once I get the image back, I can then insert that into the card data, the adaptive card. I'll show you that in a second. And then that gets effectively the image link and the image description gets mapped into the adaptive card, which is a very basic adaptive card. It's basically got a text block and an image, and then that then gets wrapped in a message action response, a messaging extension action response, which is a response where it allows you to edit the response or submit it. So where we had before, we had edit or send to the chat. That's basically where it said, this is what I'm going to send to the chat. It's a picture of an image. Do you want to send it? And it's just like a preview of what that's actually going to put in the conversation. And then that gets sent. And then finally, we have the editing one. So if you want to go back and edit the text, it generates the first card again. And then finally, this is the action where someone said, yes, I do want to send it to the conversation. Again, it's another adaptive card. It's another message that we're sending. And this where we're attaching the adaptive card to the response. And then we're adding some extra data to say who's actually attached it. So if we go back to the message in here, we can say leaf forward via bot. So it knows, oh yeah, so if it just said bot, you'd be like, well, who's actually posted that message? You know, that image doesn't make sense. Oh, it's come from Lee, now it makes sense. That's where we're doing that. So that's it from I don't really want to get too far into the code, but that's essentially what we're doing. And it is, I think it's about 100 lines of code. So it's pretty straightforward to do. Okay, right, that's that one done. I can answer some questions at the end if you've got any around the code bits. So second one is a team spot. So when we talk about team spot, this is something that I made with a good friend a few years ago, and it's just a funny conversational bot that gets sent out every day, just with some kind of positive messages. So TeamSpot is a versatile way of interact with an application or service. So, you know, maybe you're trying to book an appointment for something, maybe trying to ask some questions off a knowledge base or something like that. That's where TeamSpot comes in. But they generally follow a set path or support set tasks. So, you know, if it's a knowledge base, if the question isn't known in the knowledge base, it's going to say, sorry, I can't help you. Or, you know, if you're trying to book a desk or something like that, it's going to follow a certain logic of what desks can you book and how can you book them. You can't kind of say naturally, oh, can you book me a desk next week? You know, I want a desk that I can have plug my computer into or something like that. It's not going to work like that. That you need some AI functionality to. It's going to just follow exactly as it's programmed. So in this scenario, let's go through another problem. So the problem is, it'd be great if we could have a bot in Teams that could try to answer any questions, something like ChatGPT. As I mentioned previously, ChatGPT, you can't kind of embed it into your own code, but what you can do is you can make something ChatGPT-like. And that's what we're looking to do here. So we'll use the OpenAI GPT 3.5 AI models to create a conversational, I missed the word bot, within Teams. So what we're looking to do here is we're trying to create a bot that we can have a natural conversation with and ask it anything and see how we get on. So let's go back to tokens for a minute. So as mentioned previously, we've got 4,096 tokens with ChatGPT 3.5. And for the best results, we actually need to keep a history. So when we ask the bot a question, if it's a single question and we're expecting a single answer, that's fine. But if we actually want to have a conversation more than just one question and one answer, then we need to actually remember what's being asked and what's been answered previously. So otherwise, follow-up questions won't work. So can you elaborate further? Can you shorten this? Or can you tell me why you think this? Those won't work because it'll be like, well, what are you in? Can you elaborate on what? Because I don't know what you're asking me to elaborate on because I don't have the history or the context, i.e. the previous question and answers. That's where you need to store those with tokens. So when you're using this OpenAI 3.5 in your code, you need to actually keep that conversation history along with the request. So every time a question is asked and the answer comes back, if you then want to do a follow-up question, you need to include that answer and that question and any other previous questions and answers. You need to keep the whole conversation trail. Now, obviously, that does consume tokens. And as you may have noticed in things like Bing or even ChatGPT, it gets to a certain point where it kind of gets to the point where it can't do anything anymore because it's used up all of its tokens. And at that point, it kind of gets halfway and then it can't really help you anymore, and then you have to kind of restart the conversation, effectively clear the conversation history, so you have tokens available to be able to do something with. So here's an example. I've had a really long conversation with it, and I've asked it what is Microsoft Teams. Can you shorten this, please? And then certainly Microsoft Teams is a communication, and that's for 4,096 tokens used up, and that's all I got back. If I then send another request, it would actually sorry, if I send another request, it would actually come up with an error, basically saying, sorry, you've used up all your tokens. You need to restart the conversation. So here's an example conversation history. So here I'm just asking it questions, like what are the top 10 visited cities for tourism? It's given me 10 back, and that's what it looks like. So we have these messages, and those messages are effectively us asking questions and the response we're getting back. So there's generally two roles. There's the assistant, which is the AI, and the first message that you do before you even ask the user to send a message is you say, you have to tell the assistant, i.e. the AI, who are you? How would you want to behave? Are you funny? Are you serious? How helpful are you? Like, do you want to? I saw one the other day where it was being trained as to be like a tutor. So it'd be like, teach, you're there to teach 7-year-olds how maths works, but don't give them the answer. Kind of help them along the way of working out what the answer is. That's where in the first part there you would explain that. And then finally you've got the user, so that's the request that's come from us, what are the top 10 visited cities for tourism, and then we've got the truncated response of here saying according to recent data, blah 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 blah. And the idea is that as that conversation goes on, these messages get kept in the request as long as you can until you run out of tokens. So let's quickly go over a demo on this one. So now this one I do need to pray to the demo gods, because I tried this earlier on and it was very slow, if not didn't work at all. So we may have to keep trying on this one. So let's just try. So I don't know if it's actually going to know about this user group. Oh, hang on, before I do that, I need to do one important thing. So I need to stop the code running for the previous demo and just end that one. I can close that code down, and then I need to rerun it in here. So let's just start the code in here. Otherwise, it's going to send it to the wrong AI. Let's wait for this to load. Okay, I think it's almost ready. There we go. I think it's finally up now. So let's try. So if I go back to I'm just going to close this one because we've done with that one. Let's just say, can you tell me about the M365 user group? Now, I don't know if it's actually going to work because I did have some issues with this AI earlier. So let's see if it actually works. Okay, let's see what we've got going on. Bad gateway. Okay, that's not good. Okay, that was working earlier. Let's try again. I did have some weird issues with where the API was not responding. I have got a recording of this, so oh, here we are. It's working now, I think. So what I did get earlier was I'd get an error message back because effectively the AI API was being absolutely hammered, and I was getting 429 errors, basically telling me to go away and try again later because it was being over consumed. So hopefully we at least get a couple of questions in before it falls away. But let's see what happens. Sorry. Okay, brilliant, awesome. Let's try and restart the conversation. Okay, so let's just get this question again. It might work, it might not work. Let's see. Not looking hopeful. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Now let's see if it's actually accurate. M365 community 136 users. Okay. Okay. So that is right. And then I could put, can you?
That's awesome. Lee.
Yeah, summarize
Very good.
into one sentence. No. Sorry if I can type properly. Whether it's actually going to respond or come up with another error, we'll see. Fortunately, the API seems to be a bit flaky today. I don't know why, but it was like rapid the other day, and today it's either doesn't work or it's very, very slow. But that's
Early
always
days
happens
of
when you're trying to
AI.
demo something. So okay, all right, fair enough. We'll leave it be. What I can show you here is it does actually work, and so I can say like, can you give the top place to visit in the world? It's gonna be 10 places to visit. And then I was like, how did you come up with the list? And this list is based on a number of factors, including popularity, cultural significance, blah, 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 blah. So ultimately there is a conversation going on here when it is behaving and it's not telling me to go away and try again later. So let's go through the sort of how it all works. So in this one, we have the bot, the Azure bot, like the previous one, and we also have the Cosmos database, and I'll get into why we have that in a second. So the first part is the bot. So we have a bot, we've got a name, so I'll call it the OpenAI bot, you can call it whatever you'd like. And similar to the other one, it's pointing at my tunneling proxy, so it can run on my local machine. And then I have channels. So here we've got web chat, we've got Teams, and I can actually test it in web chat in theory. It would also, this is technically not a Teams specific one, whereas the messaging extension would be, you can only really do that in Teams, but in this one you could use it in other parts of your, other bots, other types. So whether that's in other M365 services or on your website, whatever, this code in theory would work in other places. So I'll put can you tell me about London? Okay. Now whether it's actually going to work or throw an error again, who can say? But we'll find out. Let's see what it comes back with. This is just to show that effectively it's a multimodal bot. It doesn't necessarily need to be only Teams. Right, whilst it's thinking about it, we'll go to the next section. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, of course it's having problems. So let's quickly go through what we have in here. So Cosmos database is used for, we were talking a minute ago about storing a conversation. We need to be able to grab the history of the previous questions. Now, when we send a message in Teams, like, can you elaborate further, or can you tell me about this, or why did you say that? That isn't carried across in the Teams message. We only get what the user has said. We don't know what they've said previously and what the previous answers were. So what we are doing here is we're storing the conversation ID in the Cosmos database, and then in here I can keep a track of the previous conversation for that conversation, should I say the previous GPT conversation for the Teams conversation. So effectively I can then grab through the history, and then I can then update the when I send the next request to OpenAI, I can then attach this existing conversation to the new message. So imagine I'll get, if the user sends another message, I would add it to this list at the bottom, say, oh, this is what's happened previously, and also now we're asking this. And as an aside here, I'm also then logging how many tokens are being used. So in the previous request, there was 44 tokens consumed for the prompt, which is all of this, and it was 102 tokens to complete the request back. So in total, 146 tokens. Now, as you go through, even if you're asking it really basic questions and you get really basic answers, the tokens are always going to go up. They're never going to go down if you're keeping a conversation history. So at some point, you're going to hit a brick wall where you can't ask it any more questions, and that's where you need to restart the conversations. I've got in here like restart conversation, and that will then let you kind of go back to the beginning. Okay, so that's it from a database point of view. And then if I quickly go through the code, I think we've got just enough time to do that. Similarly to here, we have an activity handler. Won't worry about any of that. And this one is actually just a couple of activities, really. First, I'll quickly go over the simple one first. This is the welcome message. So when we a user adds it to their adds the bot to their Teams client, we would then send a message, say, oh, hi, we're an AI bot, ask us anything, and away we'll go. Now, this is an on message handler. So this means when we get a text message generally, or an adaptive card message, we then have to do something with it. So what we're doing here is we're saying, as the user asks us to restart it, if they have, then we will delete the conversation because we're restarting the conversation. So we don't need to worry about the previous history that we've kept track of in the database. We'll get rid of that, and we'll start again, and we'll send a welcome card. If it's not a restart, then we're assuming it's a message that needs to be processed. So here we're setting up OpenAI for the request, and then we've put check if conversation exists in database. We need to do this because OpenAI chat works better with a history of messages, and if we don't have a conversation, we need to create one. And if we already have an existing conversation, then we need to add this new message that's just come in to the existing conversation. And then once we've done that, then we can call the API. So we're going through and we're getting the conversation from Cosmos database. If there's no conversation, we're going to create a new one. And this is where we're telling the AI, you're a helpful assistant. Else, if there is a conversation and there is text from Teams, we then add that new bit of text that, that's just coming from Teams that a user sent to the conversation. And then what we do is we send an activity to the typing. So that looks like, the ... shows that the bot's actually thinking about something. And that's when we then create the OpenAI request to basically get that message. If we get the data back, we then send a response with an adaptive card, and we then update the response in the database. So when we get the request in from the user, we then update the Cosmos database with the user just asked, and then if we get a response from the AI, we then also add that to the database for next time. And obviously, if there's any errors, then we come up with the error saying we're having trouble, try restarting. And that's basically it from a database point of view, from a storage, and from a bot logic. That's, again, it's around 100 lines long. It's not particularly complicated setup we've got going on here. And I think if I go now back to my slides, got a couple more, and then we are good. So that was the two demos. So there's one more thing that I'm going to talk about quickly, and that's the M365 Copilot that literally just came out today. Well, I say came out, it's been announced today, it's not actually out. And that's an AI assistant. So, in addition to what I've talked about today, where we're implementing AI into our own applications, Microsoft effectively built something that you don't need to do that. If you want effectively just ChatGPT-like features in your Office or M365 products, you can do that. Now, there's no licensing or pricing details. I suspect they're not going to give it away for free. So you're going to have to pay for it. And the way it works is, let's say in Teams, you could say, this is something that it would do. It's going to summarize discussion points and like who said what, and were people agreeing, were people disagreeing, and it suggests things that need to come out after the meeting. Who needs to do what and whatnot. And that's all going to be AI powered. So that's an example of what Copilot's going to be there to do when it comes to Teams. Like I say, there is a blog post that just announced all of this, and you can obviously have a look at that and go through it. But effectively, they're trying to put GPT in a lot of places in M365. So that's it for me. Both of those demos that I've done are in the PMP Teams Dev Samples. Now, I do have a couple of updates that I need to push out to kind of bring them up to date with what I've shown you today, but ultimately the kind of the base of them are there already. And obviously, yeah, go and have a look and see what you think. And that's it for me. Any questions? Yeah, more than happy to help.
Great stuff, Lee.
Okay.
Good session. Nice overview, the
Okay.
OpenAI and the elements around it, and yeah, good demos too. I think very interesting. Obviously, to try and fit all that within an hour or so. But yeah, we had some good good conversations. Feel free to look through those. I think if I can probably pick just a couple before anyone wants to unmute and ask questions. I think that was quite interesting one. I think, in fact, you know, in terms of how much you could trust with AI that comes out of it. So I think that particular example you had where you wanted to kind of, you know, search for the picture side of things, and all men came out, right? So, you know, in terms of kind of having that diverse group of people. So, you know, little things but big impact, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
How
that
you
comes back
control,
to
so-
yeah. If I maybe put a diverse group of people watching, you know, a tech thing, yeah, I would like to think the AI would do that. But yeah, there is, like I said, there's always, unfortunately, some yeah, it's not perfect. There's some bias and there's some ways to go before it's yeah,
Indeed.
it's all the way there.
It reflects the bias of the data set. That's the problem, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like the source data
That's the
set
thing.
is quite biased, and that's
It is,
there's an interesting point
unfortunately.
there around that. I think we've dropped something of a ball as all of us. You know, the way this is going to work, because there's no way of differentiating the output from the input now. Like the next round of GPA model building is going to take all of the output from GPT 3.5 because it's the only thing on the internet now, and so like this recursive like inbreeding of data
You're feeding
is going to get worse and worse and worse until it's all rubbish, which is going to be at some point we're going to have to turn it all off again.
I know what you
and
mean.
Like start again, and we're like, right, no GPT for anyone for a generation, because we need to get like genuine ideas back again, please.
I know what you mean, because the AI, basically GPT-5 is going to be fed a load of GPT-4 generated stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Good. Interesting time.
Those images are going to get weirder and weirder.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that mean that we'll have to adapt to those images and those content sources, and that'll be interesting, right? How the human behaviors will kind of be like. Yeah, I think you know, attendees, feel free. You know, good point to add there, Tom. I think anybody else, if they have any questions, I can see. Hand from Daniel. Go ahead.
Hi there. What's for your samples? If you wanted to flip that over to using Azure OpenAI rather than the OpenAI endpoints, is that simple enough to do? That would be one question. And the other is do those Azure OpenAI endpoints mean greater security on you know, because the prompts at the moment, if you type in a prompt, it's going to go, it feeds straight back into the model. Is that correct?
Yeah, so so I think there's two parts there. So the first one is around feeding into the model. So I think with GPT 3.5, OpenAI have said that you have to opt into that now, as previously, up to that point, anything you kind of did through ChatGPT or any of the other models, they were kind of taking that data that you were giving it and getting back and using it to train it further. Whereas now they're saying with OpenAI, this is with 3.5 onwards, you have to opt in for that. And also the data is only stored for 30 days or something. With regards to Azure OpenAI service, I mean, I haven't actually had hands-on with it yet because I can't actually it's because you have to like register and, you know, jump through about 1 million hoops by the looks of it to kind of get it. But certainly reading the documentation, it is essentially what OpenAI offer. The difference is that you're not using an API key and calling it over the internet. In theory, let's say if you had a web service running in Azure, you could, let's say, use something like managed identity to authenticate with the AI service, so everything is kind of in your environment. You're not having to call APIs with API keys over the internet or outside of your remit as such. So all the data and everything, all the questions, it's all stored, you know, in your tenant. But I think that's the difference, really.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great question. Yeah, no, good one. Well, look, I think we'll probably just kind of move on. I think this is slightly over time here. But I
Sorry.
think,
Yeah, that's me.
yeah, no, that's okay. No, absolutely fine. Like I said, it's informal. So I think, in the meantime, obviously, any further thoughts, questions, please do come through. But just want to say thanks, Lee, for for a great session there, and I learned lots as ever. So, absolutely, I think that's. Look forward to more developments, and thanks for sharing those links as well. So yeah, it's a good one. So I think yeah, let's kind of move on to the next session from Tom Morgan. So this one's another interesting session we have. So this is all about the Azure Communication Services and Microsoft Teams. So about kind of business to consumer kind of the relationship between the web-based system they can build, keeping still inside Microsoft Teams, all secure and compliant. So I think this is the one which Tom I think is building the session right from the scratch. So looking forward to the next in the next hour here. So yeah, I think Tom, as many of you may know, who's an 8-time MVP. So over the years I followed his blog and thoughtstuff.com. So yeah, I think welcome Tom to M365 UK, and take it away.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, in my mind, when I put this together, I thought by now everyone would have had some pizza, some beer. They'd mostly be ignoring me, so I'd get away with like trying some things out and doing a bit risky. And if it didn't work, it didn't matter. But instead, I'm sitting here staring at my webcam, wondering if it's all going to work. So it'll be fine, I'm sure. Chirag, if you can make me a presenter, then I will share my screen.
Yes.
And that's quite all right. I thought I should get on this AI bandwagon as well. That I've mostly been trying to ignore, and I don't think I'd call myself a skeptic. I'd say I'd call myself maybe an AI realist. But I thought, okay, today I've done a few things today and a few things last week as well to sort of try and get into it. One of the things I did was image generation, just like Lee showed actually, because Lee's given a great introduction to kind of all the different things you can do with AI. I used a different thing called Stable Diffusion to do my images for the title slide, because I thought that would be a cool thing to do. So it didn't work exactly as I thought it was going to, but it's a little bit terrifying. But you could sort of, maybe it'll be good. The guy certainly on the right hand side looks absolutely, I don't know, it looks like he might implode any minute, and that's definitely not a phone that she's wearing, or she's holding in her hand. But never mind. The other thing I did actually, before we get into this talk, I just added like a few slides at the beginning, just because we were talking about AI. And this afternoon, I kind of actually sat down with ChatGPT and I thought, okay, fine, I should actually give this thing a go, shouldn't I? But rather than just sort of ask things, I was like, what could I do with ChatGPT? But what do I care about? What do I want? And I thought, actually, I'd quite like some more money, and I don't really want to do any work. So that's what I started with. I said to ChatGPT, I was like, look, you're supposed to be a clever AI. Let's do this thing. So you're an AI. You've got £100. I'm going to be your liaison to the real world. You tell me what to do. Let's go and make some money. Nothing illegal. Okay. So it came back. Oh, I told it as well I could do some programming and website design, which was probably a mistake to tell it, because if it came back and was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So make a website, monetize it, offer your services, you do some work, we make some money. I was like, okay, fine. I mean, thought I was doing that already, but thanks. All right. So I went back and I was like, well, that sounds like quite a lot of work on my behalf. Is there anything that we can do that basically means I don't have to do any work? It's like, okay, yeah, we could do drop shipping, we could do affiliate marketing, online surveys, and freelancing. Now, at this point, I was like, okay, all right. And this is the point in which I start contributing to the problem I've just raised about 5 minutes ago. So I was like, fine, let's do some affiliate marketing, but you need to do the work. So what's the niche? And like, what do we need to do? We've got $100. Okay, so let's do it. And we should select a profitable niche like technology or beauty. I was like, well, I'm going to choose technology. Great. And I sort of scanned it. I was like, actually, it's not a bad idea. We could do this, couldn't we? And I'd never heard of Bluehost as a hosting provider. It turns out, yeah, they are actually £3 a month. They are pretty cheap. WordPress is still free. We could do all these things. I already had an affiliate account, Amazon affiliate account. So I was like, all right, let's do that. what about domain name? I'm not doing any of this work. You need to do the work. So what domain name should we do? Right, here are some good domain names. These ones are all free. There's all sorts of reasons why you should choose them. Okay, fine. So I've chosen one of those, and I was like, fine, yep, I bought it. That's how much it cost, because I want it to kind of keep track of all the spend and stuff. What tagline should I use? Here are some taglines. Great, so I picked one of those, great. Now, at this point, I was like, oh, I need to use DALL-E for image generation, but I've no idea what to do. So I was like, well, why don't you come up with the prompt for DALL-E? Because it's kind of basically all AI under the hood anyway. So you come up with a good prompt for DALL-E that I can use for a good hero image. Great. Did that. Put that into DALL-E. It wasn't a bad image, actually, to be fair. So yeah, I'm going to use that. And then I was like, great, let's do a logo. Yep, similar sort of thing. And by this point, the kind of site's coming along quite well, actually. Sorry, I just need to flip here because I can't remember what the next slide is. And I don't want to actually start the, right. Yep, let's do some introductory text. So just keep going like this. And then after that, I was like, well, what products should we talk about? Gave me a list of products, gave me a list of links to Amazon so I could put in the affiliate thing and tell me what to do. And I'm off to the races creating an affiliate site without actually doing any work. Will it work? No idea. Will I ever get back my £47 that I spent on Blue hosting? Not sure. I'll let you know. That's what I did this afternoon for about an hour, and then I had to stop because I had real work to do. But it'll be interesting actually to see if it does come up with anything. But that was like, that was an interesting way of thinking about it for me, because I was like, well, there must be, you know, rather than just kind of like looking up things or explaining things, something like that. It was like, well, actually, you know everything about the world apparently. So, you know, this is my goal. How do I go achieve my goal? Anyway, that wasn't the talk I was going to give today. But I thought it was like an interesting, like, this is what happened to me this afternoon. But let's talk about something else that has been plaguing us when it's not AI. It's things like this, where we were supposed to be in one place and now we're in another place, and we're all online instead of disparately, you know, all together, and we're all disparate. And yeah, we've got quite good at doing this. We've got quite used to it, I suppose. But it's kind of definitely changed a lot of things for us, and it's changed kind of how we think about things. And we've figured it out. You know, we learned what works, what doesn't work. We've figured out that some things have to happen in person, but not everything has to happen in person. And I think it's kind of changed us, and I think we're much pickier about what we'll show up to in person now, actually, especially for like things we don't care about so much, like companies. And I think we prioritize much more human connections and friends and families and you know, things we do care about. And that's kind of been coming, I think, but the pandemic obviously has massively accelerated it. And the other thing now that's different is that things like virtual meetings are super accessible by everybody. Everybody can do virtual meetings now. And that was the case before, but like people didn't admit to it, right? So my parents are a good example of this. I could never get them to use Skype, never. Call them on the phone, could never get them to do anything on Skype. It was too hard, it's too complicated, and they had to set up on the phone. It gets locked down. Turns out when it's the only way to see your grandchildren, turns out FaceTime isn't actually that hard. So now we've ended up in the place on the other side where everyone's realised that we can all do this stuff, and it is all accessible, and it is, you know, easier than we thought. And so many more people than before are going to be happy with doing virtual. And actually, there's a growing percentage of people seeking it out for all sorts of reasons. They're more comfortable doing it that way. It's easier. There's less travel. You know, if you've got mobility problems, like why make somebody go halfway across the city if they don't need to? And so for a lot of organizations, this is kind of something they're starting to think about and consider, because they're seeing people prioritize virtual over in person. And so, you know, they're kind of thinking, how do we meet people where they're at? And you know, when I talk to organizations, and I talk to them quite a lot, they're clear about a few things. They want to keep using Microsoft Teams. You know, they know Microsoft Teams, they like Microsoft Teams, they trust it, they understand it, I mean, they paid for it. And they don't particularly want to use another third-party solution. But their customers, end users, they've no idea what a Teams is if it hit them in the face, right? People in the real world don't have Teams. They just want something that works on their phone, on their iPad, on the tablet, whatever it is, without them having to download anything, without having to install anything. It should just work. It shouldn't be too hard. So you've got these kind of two worlds where the organization wants to keep the meeting experience inside Teams for their staff, but extend it out to customers. And customers don't want to use Teams. They just want to have it just work. And that is the fundamental problem that we are solving in this session, and that this whole thing solves, that I'm going to talk about. So, Teams. This slide is outdated, and I haven't had a chance to update it. It should be 290 million monthly active users, which is pretty good, pretty solid for voice, video, screen sharing. Got us all through lockdown. Teams. What's not to like? Don't answer that. But the funny thing about Teams is that actually it's not all just Teams. Actually, a lot of the stuff that we praise Teams for actually isn't Teams at all. There's something else under the hood, and that most of the time you never see, and it's called IC3. Ooh, IC3, the thing you hardly ever see, and it's the communication platform that Teams is built on. And there's an API for that platform that is relatively new, and that API is called Azure Communication Services. So you've got this underlying platform that powers the voice, the chat, the video, the screen sharing functionality of Teams. And now there's an API for developers to use it. That's exciting. And you can use it in a number of different ways. Microsoft are using it themselves. So I've already said it powers Microsoft Teams. It also powers other first-party things. So if you've looked at Dynamics 365 customer service, that uses ACS. If you've done anything with LinkedIn video, that thing that no one launched a while ago, but I don't think anyone's really using it, that's ACS as well. But you can put your own application on top of this as well, which is exciting. So what does it give you? What is it? Okay, so it's not a product. It's not a thing you buy. It's like a developer service. It's a thing. It's actually a thing in Azure. I'll show you in a minute. So it's a capability like a function app or a web app or something like that that you don't purchase because it's consumption. You acquire in Azure, and then you can use as a developer. It gives you access to this big platform for doing lots of things: voice over IP, SMS, email, other things. And within just the voice over IP thing for a minute, because we've got to kind of scope this talk a little bit. Just looking at the voice over IP part, it can do one-to-one calling, it can do group calling, it can join Teams meetings. So it's one-to-one calling and group calling. They're not Teams calls, they're ACS calls, completely different. If you go back to thinking that actually Teams is just ACS anyway, or IC3 anyway, they are the same, but for the purposes of this, they are different things. These calls that you make don't show up in any Teams logs anywhere. That's the easiest way to think about it, I guess. And crucially, actually, if you go and do one of these things, one thing to be aware of is that you can still have Teams running separately if you want to, or not, because that can be confusing. So I said voice, video, screen sharing, recording. There's native libraries for all sorts of things, iOS, Android, JavaScript. The whole thing runs in Azure, and you pay for it in Azure. There's no licenses, not like Teams where it's licensed. This is Azure, and it's consumption billed in Azure, which is kind of an interesting demarc. So you don't need any Teams licenses, and even if you have them, they don't mean anything. You've still got to pay. And then the way developers use it is by interacting it either using REST APIs, which you can do, or using JavaScript, which you can do, or using one of their UI libraries, which I'll show you in a bit. Okay, so that's kind of a level set of roughly where we're at. We're going to do two things, two different ways of extending Teams out to end users. So that's kind of our problem. We're going to take a Teams meeting. In fact, we're going to take this Teams meeting, because I love a challenge. I'm going to take this Teams meeting and open it out to the world. We're going to do it in two different ways. We're going to do it a pro code way, and we're going to do it in a low code way. So yeah, we're going to start with something very pro codey, and then we're going to start with something in Power Apps. Neither one is better than the other, they're just different, and there's a bit of a mix there between customization and ease of setup. Pick one or the other or both, it doesn't really matter. And don't worry if you're not a developer or you don't want to do one or the other. This is more about showing you what's possible in the confines of 60 something or 50 something minutes, rather than it is like teaching you how to do it. It's just knowing you can do these things. So if you want to, you can go and look into it, and you can kind of talk and find people who can either help you or do it for you or teach you how to do it. All right, so 1 second. Before we jump into the demo, I need to talk about authentication a little bit, otherwise this whole thing will just feel like magic. What normally happens with ACS is you've normally got like a front end, like a website, and you've got a back end, like an API. And those two things are split. And the front end code really just kind of talks to the back end, and that's a fairly common pattern for building things like websites. And so you might already have that in place for a portal or a customer service center or something like that. And you've already got that going on. And when you want to do some video, your front end code will go to the back end code, go to the API, and say, oh, I need to do some video. I've got this user who wants to do some video. Your back end code can decide whether that's a good idea and whether or not that user is going to do it, and it can then issue a token. So let's assume it does want to issue a token. The first thing it's going to do is generate an ACS identity, because you can't have a token without a user. The ACS identity it's a very lightweight store. It's a very lightweight object. It's really just a GUID. Okay, it's not like a big AD user property that's got like a million things on the end of it, a million properties. It's literally just a GUID. Now you can just generate one in a single line of code, and you can reuse it if you want to, or you can throw it away as soon as you're done. It doesn't matter. You might want to store it if you already store information about a user. You might want to generate one once and then keep it with that user so you can reuse it. That way you get something of a history of users making calls or doing videos or whatever. But you don't need to, and ACS will not care if you throw it away and use another one for the same user the next second. So you've got your user, very, very simple, just generate one, and then decide what that user can do. So that's done using scopes. And so a scope might be, this person can do voice over IP calls, or this person can send and receive SMS messages. Do that scope, and then you issue an access token. Again, one line of code. I'm going to show you it in a minute. One line of code, issue an access token. That access token goes back to your front end, and that's all that your front end needs to start using ACS. And when your front end then uses its JavaScript or its native iOS library or Android library, whatever it is, and takes that token and goes back to ACS with it, ACS knows that it belongs to this tenant. It needs to be charged to this ACS instance, and that it's allowed to happen. And that's how that stuff all works. So that's what you're supposed to do. For the demo, we're going to do this, which is a really bad idea. We're going to have a backend code that always says yes, doesn't do any checks, and every time you call it, it will generate a new user, generate the token, and give it straight back again, because it makes the demo a lot easier. And it will always give us access tokens. The flip side to that is that you're going to get charged for every time this gets used. So if you were to go take this approach and put it on your website, every time anybody showed it to your website and wanted to make a video call with someone, your backend would just say yes. And that might be fine. That might be exactly what you want to do. But it's going to cost you, and Azure won't care, because it's all paid by consumption. So they'll be quite happy to generate a token for every user on your website, but you might not be. Okay, so let's show some code. So the first thing I want to show you actually is not that at all. The first thing I want to show you is the token, the authentication token stuff I was just showing you. So this is a Azure function, okay, and it's an HTTP Azure function, which means I can call it by I can get an HTTP endpoint to it. I can call it by just calling a get on that HTTP endpoint, and it's going to run this code and spit out the result. The code is super simple, and let me just go through it real quick. So ignore the logging bit. This bit sets up the connection to our ACS identity. What does that mean? Okay, so in my Azure, I've got a communication services instance. Okay, that you just go and create one in Azure, and that's, you know, go and find it, create it, and you're done. There's loads of things you can do here that are interesting. I've done none of them here, but in keys, you go and get a connection string, which is long and complicated and looks like that. I put it in my environment variable so you can't see it, and then you pass it to this communication identity client, and that sets up the client. And once you have the client, you can then create users and you can issue tokens. And this is always stuff that should happen on the back end, because your front end should never know your tokens. So your connection strings, only the tokens. Turns out this is a thing people like to do quite a lot. So actually they've created a method that both creates the user and issues the token in one line of code, which is pretty cool. So that's what we're doing here, create user and token. This scopes is the permission set, if you like, of the things this user can do. So here it's just voice over IP. And then I'm going to send that back. So let me just show you. If I just go and get the URL for that and put it up here and run it, it's going to run that bit of code and give it back, and that's massive, but that's actually quite good. So I've got the user ID, which is this long bit here, and then there's an access token, which is this bit here, and it lasts for an hour. Okay, sorry, a day even, not an hour, lasts for a day. So that's a really easy way to get the access tokens you need for ACS, and that's handy because we're going to use that bit of code in the next thing that happens. Okay, so that's sort of like, that's our first thing that we can use. We've got this ability to kind of go and get our bits of code, get our access tokens. What about the next thing? Okay, well, if this was a real thing, let's come over here. If this was a real thing, we'd want to go and generate a meeting for our user, and you can do that in Graph. Microsoft Graph will let you create meetings, and the easiest way to quickly show you that is using the Graph Explorer, which is amazing. If you've never used it, you must have used it by now, surely. If not, it's a really, really nice way of just quickly doing stuff with Microsoft Graph. I'm logged in as me, which is handy because it then means that all the stuff we do here will just happen in my account. And so I can, if I want to, I can go and create a meeting. I don't need to schedule it. I don't need to tie it to Outlook or anything like that. If I just do me/online meetings, I do need to put something in the body, and there's a million options you could put in if you wanted to create a meeting. As a minimum, I'm going to put the subject in. That's pretty much all I need to put in, actually. It's a post request, not a get request, so let's do that. And I can send that off to Graph, and I will get a meeting back. Now, get a few things here. This join URL, if I was to put this into my browser, it would join a meeting. It's a real meeting, it would work. And we can do that. Now, if things go bad, I might take that one. But for now, I've actually taken the join URL for the meeting we're all in, because one of the things I didn't really appreciate until last night when I was running this through is that this demo would work really well in person and not so well when you're already in a Teams meeting. But we're going to persevere anyway, and I think I found a way through. So anyway, so that's good, right? So we've got this ability to create a meeting, which is handy. So now we actually really need to write some code. All right, so let's come over to here. So we're going to make a bit of a jump now. Okay, so hold on to your hats and your handbags and whatever. If you're not a developer, don't worry. I'm going to keep sort of pausing and coming back up and down again. So if this is like a complete, like, I've no idea what I'm looking at, don't worry. This is a React website. So this is like this is what it looks like when you go and create a React site for the first time. And in fact, if I split screen for us, or just jump over for a second actually, so you can see it. A React website, when it is built, looks like this. Okay, it's got like a nice spinny thing, and it says Learn React. Okay, and I can go back to the code, and if I was to change some of this code, this is kind of running in real time right now. So if I change this code to like, hello everyone, and the spacebar on my computer is slowly dying. So if I say hello everyone and save it, yep, it's going to recompile. It's going to moan, and then in a minute, this will update to hello everyone. So this is kind of handy. We can make some changes to our code here. I can flip over here, and then we can see them reflected. Okay, handy. So what we're going to do? Well, we want to get rid of all of this bit because that's not very interesting, and we're going to replace it with something that goes and makes that call to the Azure function to go and get a token. And then what are we going to do with that token? Okay, so there's a few options here. We could write loads and loads of JavaScript code to use Azure Communication Services, which would be one thing, but take too long. Or the other thing we could do is use some UI components from Azure Communication Services, because handily, they've got lots of them. And even more handily somewhere, I've got the tab open to show you them. Right, here they are. So Azure Communication Services comes with a bunch of UI components that you can use in your next application. That can be all the way from I only want to pop in the participant list, or the participant itself, or the control bar, or the video tile. All of these individual things are things that you can take and put into your application. They also do composite components, which are actually, I just want like the whole calling experience. The everything, you know, like when I think about joining a meeting, I want one of these. I can just take this and drop it into my application and it will more or less work. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to take one of these big UI composite components and drop it into our application. The way that works is you set up the client, you give it all the tokens, and you create a call adapter. A call adapter is just an object in Azure Communication Services that takes in the token. And once you have a call adapter, it takes in the token and it takes in where you want to go. So it takes in the meeting coordinates. So with those two things, that's your call adapter. And the call adapter is like the logic, if you like, of what's going on. And then the UI is just the visuals. And you connect those things together and your UI lights up with, you know, it connects you to the meeting and the call adapter does the work, and it's wonderful. And that's what we're going to try and achieve. So let's see if we can do it in the allocated time. So let's get rid of all of this stuff. So all of this stuff in the return is the stuff that gets sent back to the HTML to be rendered as HTML. So we're going to get rid of all of that because it was all a bit made up anyway. So that's fine. And the first thing we can do is actually add in a new library, or another library, which is the library from Azure Communication Services. And it's one that allows us to create a token credential, which is handy because that's what we need. We want to, really what we want to do is when the web page loads, we want to go off and go and get that access token from the Azure function I just showed you. So we want to do that kind of as the page loads. In React land, in order to do that when the page loads, we need to do a thing called use effect. So I'm going to import use effect as well. I'll make a little space in here. And I'm going to copy and paste some of this just so you don't have to watch me type it. But I'm going to try and do it in bits to build it up as we go along, which has the risk that my brackets get kind of out of whack. But let's see. Let's start like that. So this is my use effect thing. So everything inside here will get run when the page loads. So we're going to have a little function that will go and get the token and get the credentials from that Azure function. So I'm going to pop it in and then we're just going to look through it. It's not as complicated as it looks, I promise. Here is that big URL. It's exactly the same one as I put into the tab and you saw the response from it. I'm going to get the response back as JSON. Then I'm going to pull the token out and I'm going to pull the ID out. And then I'm going to create a new Azure Communication token credential using the token. Now, I only need the token. So why am I getting the user ID out as well? We're going to use it later. So at this point, I could save this and I think nothing will break. Or apart from that, oh, okay, I didn't actually put anything in here. So I'm just going to pop something in here and let's put, I think we need to put something, right? Let's do that and see if that's enough. And save. And the reason I want to do this, is because obviously that goes to coming soon, but let's just look at what's happening on this page when it loads. So if I refresh this page now, can you see here, there's a call to get token, which is that call, that function, and we've got the token back. You can see it here, user ID, access token. So that's all working, it's all good, and we can now use this in our code next time around. So that's handy, that's a good step. So let's do more. Now, the call adapter, that needs a few more things that we don't currently have. It needs the display name and it needs the coordinates of the meeting. The coordinates, so let's just make some more space up here and let's pop in a few things and talk about them. So, right, we've got a display name. That's a fairly rubbish display name, isn't it? Let's call it a demo call user. And then we've got the Teams meeting URL. I think this is the, and it's just the join link. It's the same join link we all used to get in here. I think this is the one for the meeting we're in. So hopefully. And so we need to create our call adapter. Now, the way React works is you can create these variables like this, and that's fine. And you can create stateful variables where React is kind of aware of when you update them, and then you can rely on their state and do things with their state later, which is a horrible way of describing how React works. So apologies if anyone actually knows how React works. But I'm going to do that here with the call adapter by using this use state thing. And right, so you're not very happy about call adapter, which we will come back to in a minute, I think. Right, so why are you unhappy about call adapter? Oh yes, I need to import some more things from the Azure Communication Services library. Let's do that. Let's import a few things that we're going to need, one that we need now and a few that we'll need in a minute. So that's happier. Got this, that's good. All right, so what we're going to do with this this call adapter, we need to set it. So once we've got the token, we can actually go and set it. So once we've got the token, which is here, let's come down here, make a little space, and we can then set it. Right. All right, let's have a look at why you're moaning. Let's do some things. Let's pull out, hang on, user ID and credential. Let's have a think. Let's not do that there then. Hang on. Let's take this. I think I made my space in the wrong place. Let's make a little space here. There. All right, let's think. So we're going to go and get a token, blah, 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 blah. Then we can set our call adapter, blah, 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 blah. Let's think about what we're doing here. Let's bring it back here. Right. I think we're good. So that's going to set up our call adapter. Now, the call adapter, as its variables, takes in the user ID, which is the thing that we set up here that we got from our token, our call to get the token, and the display name, the credential, and the locator, which is the Teams meeting URL. Okay, so we've done a lot of things, but we're not shown anything for it. So we've got a call adapter, we've got everything set up. All right, before I lose you all forever, I've got one more thing to do. Okay, so we're going to do, sometimes setting up that call adapter can take a few seconds because you've got to go make the function call, then you go off to Azure Communication Services, you've got to go and, find out if it's the right meeting. Like the whole process takes a few seconds. So what we're going to do is replace this return here with a conditional return based on whether or not we've got the call adapter or not. And that's why we use that kind of stateful variable thing, because it allows us to do this. So we can say, look, if we've got the call adapter, then go and create a call composite. A call composite is one of those brilliant UI components that the Azure Communication Services has that we can use, and then pass it the call adapter object that we just created. If we don't have any of that stuff, just display this thing that says initializing. Sound good? All right. I think that might be everything we need, unless there's loads of errors. So full of optimism, I'm going to turn off my camera because I might need it in a minute. And I'm going to save this. This is going to take a while to compile because we've added a load of things in up here. So I'm going to what I'm going to do is go and get this and split the screen slightly so we can see both sides of the puzzle, just because I want to keep an eye on what's happening over here. All right, okay. So whilst that's compiling, I'm just going to have a quick cough and a sip of this delightful alcohol-free beer. 2 seconds. Okay, so I want to kind of quickly recap what we did. First of all, we already had our Azure function to go and get tokens from ACS, and that's our way of getting access into the system. Having something on the back end that brings back the tokens for ACS. So we started with that, and then in our code here, on a kind of reload, we went and called that thing. Now in the real world, you'd have an API call you'd make to something very much like this actually, but the API would then be responsible for figuring out if that was a good idea or not. So we did that. We pulled out the token, we've pulled out the IDs, pulled out the things we've needed, and then we've created a call adapter, which is an ACS thing. We've imported these 8 libraries up here, which allow us to do all these things. So we haven't written them. We created a call adapter, and with the call adapter, we've kind of wired it up just by giving it the location of the meeting, which is just the join link. There's no magic there. It's literally the same join link that we've all used. And I'm pretty sure I've used the right join link for this meeting. And then we have plopped in a single object in our return object, a single thing, which is this call composite. Now, we could choose to do individual items and build up our own kind of custom UI, an artisan meeting experience, if you will, or actually, if all we care about is something that looks a bit like Teams but isn't Teams, we can put in one of these cool composites. Now, everyone's gonna have a slightly different thing for what they want. I'll shut my camera on again if all I'm going to do is waffle on whilst this thing's compiling. Yeah, so we could definitely have a different layout for depending on what you wanted to do. You might want to take away, for instance, you might want to take away the participant list and just have a very cut down experience. You might want to remove the control bar and have your own buttons. Oh, it's nearly ready. I don't have to waffle on anymore. Well, let's keep an eye on the screen because it looks like it's finishing, and then in a minute the screen on the right will refresh to initializing, and then hopefully, okay, perfect. Hopefully now it's created an initial meeting join experience. Again, we didn't write this. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off in gleeful optimism. I don't know what it's going to do about the sound. Right, if I stop talking, you'll know what's happened. So I'm going to. Should we try this? There's me. Right, hold on to your hats. I'm going to try and join this meeting again. I don't really. Oh, layout is all over the place because we haven't put any effort into CSS, which is a problem I'm not going to do today. Unknown. Look, if you come back to the chat, you can see that unknown user guest was invited to the meeting. I get a recording. Oh, I get horrendous feedback, and I don't know if anyone else does. But this person is in this meeting. Let me unmute. Is that the right answer? No, I'm not going to unmute. We'll get howling. Anyway. Don't know if there's really bad delay for everyone or just me, but it works. We're in this meeting. I can see lots of people. I can see all these people. And I could present, I think. I don't know if I am a presenter actually. This is probably going to cause all sorts of problems, but anyway, I don't think I can present because I'm a guest and that's not allowed, but let's not worry about that because I'm presenting this now and the world would end if I tried to present as well, I think. I've got lots, this is the standard experience, right? So I've got lots of controls over my devices. Let's not look at that. Let's come back. I should stop clicking around. One interesting thing that will happen actually, if I do this again, is that I will join the meeting again. Eventually, oh, it's happened already. The unknown user has disappeared. There's lots of stuff here you can do. There's lots of customization. there's lots of power that you get out of the box. But again, this is the composite component. So if you don't like it, that's fine. You can break it up into its disparate bits and put it back together again, however you want. But this is like the out of the box experience. Again, you use CSS probably to make it a bit higher and maybe not wide. But I wanted to show you that, like, you can do it. You can do it in React. I'm going to leave because the echo is terrible. You can do it. You can do it in React. Let's turn my camera on again. You can make it work. If you're not a React developer, it's fine. You can go and find one and throw them in front of this recording and be like, I want that for my website. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. What if you're not a React developer? What if you don't want to be a React developer and you don't want to go and find one? And I don't blame you. Let's do it a completely different way. Because let's come back to the Graph Explorer and our made up meeting. Right, there's something else you can do here, which is kind of interesting. Now, you've got a couple of options for this meeting you've just created. So you could give people this join link and then they could join in Teams, but that's not very fun. And it's also not a brilliant experience for them. There is something else, though, that Microsoft talk about quite a lot called a virtual appointment. And a virtual appointment is you joining that exact same meeting, but in a slightly different way and with a slightly different UI that is a bit nicer and has less buttons and is a bit more user-friendly, perhaps. And normally, that's a Teams premium feature. So it's possible that this way of doing things that I'm going to show you might not be around forever, but it works for now. So let's make the most of it. So we were looking at the join URL before on this meeting we created. Instead, I'm going to take this ID here, this really long ID, and we can do something fun. So if I go to this ID here and then go to virtual appointment, so / virtual appointment. Now, this is a beta functionality, so I need to switch over to the beta endpoint, and it's a put request. And I don't have to send anything in the body if I don't want to. I can do. I can send some. You can send some sort of interesting stuff, but I'm not going to send anything. I'm just going to make this put request on that meeting. So I'm not making a new meeting. This is the same meeting, this one I created down here. I can't do this to the meeting we're in at the moment because it's not my meeting. So Chirag could do this probably, but I can't because it's not my meeting. So I have to have access to the meeting. So that's why I'm using the one I've just created. So I'm like put request to virtual appointment, and then in the response that comes back is another URL, but it's not. It's a different one now. It's visit.teams.microsoft.com. Now, if you've never been to visit.teams.microsoft.com, it's the virtual appointment experience. So let me take this URL, pop it in a private browser. I don't think it needs to be a private browser actually, but and you get a much nicer experience. You get this kind of like welcome to your appointment thing. Now you can't change this. So this is good if you do appointments and not great if you don't. But that's some of the stuff that Teams Premium is going to kind of make changeable, I think, different styles of meetings and the virtual appointment premium features. But anyway, this is nicer. I get this. I get a bit to, I think in a minute I can choose some devices. It's going to want to do that. And this is me joining that same meeting, but with a much more user-friendly, cut-down kind of experience. And I can go in here and I'll just stay in this meeting now because no one else is in that meeting because we just created it. So I could stay there forever. So that's interesting. So I could do that. Now, why am I telling you all that? Well, this, we don't need that anymore, do we? This is just APIs. So we're just making APIs and just throwing API calls around. And Power Automate, sorry, not Power Automate. Well, Power Automate is quite good at throwing API endpoints around, but so are Power Apps. And so in Power Apps, there is no reason. Oh, I didn't think I was there. Right, let's go here. In Power Apps, there's no reason why you can't make a custom connector to go and call those two API endpoints in Graph, which is something I've just done. And then that would give you a Power App that you could give to your end users who wanted to make meetings that customers could join for instance, and you could do it like this. So this, you could have a little Power App like this, and behind the scenes, all it's going to do is call those APIs using a Power App connector. So I could say I want a demo meeting, and it's literally going to go and make those 2 API calls for me. So that's the first one. So I can go and join that Teams meeting, and this is the one I give to the customer, so they can go and join it. So I could click this, I'd join it in Teams. They could take that and they'd go and join it in their nice experience, and they'd have a lovely time. And I could do all of that in Power Apps, and actually that could live in Teams as well. There's no reason why that couldn't just be shown as an app in a channel in Teams, and that would be like a very good little low-code way of doing it. So let's come back here for a minute, because I think I haven't really been keeping an eye on the time, but we must be close, I think. If not,
yeah,
Leon gets more
time.
time. Perfect.
Oh, you can take another 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Good. So I'm sorry if I completely lost you all, but 2 different approaches, okay? A super pro code approach, a super low code no approach. Different ways of doing it. You can definitely do this today, where you have a browser-based experience for getting people into Teams meetings that can be wrapped, can be logoed, can be, you know, white labeled for however you want it to do it. It's a thing customers everywhere really are asking for. So it's definitely time to go and have a look at it. I hope that's been useful. My name is Tom Morgan. I do this stuff all the time, and I blog about it and do videos about it there. If you're more interested in ACS, there's a whole series of them. Like I did a whole series of blog posts on kind of how to get started with ACS and stuff like that. But thank you very much for listening. And yeah, any questions, fire them out. Yes, I'm just pleased the demo works.
Very good, Tom. Now, listen, look, I'm not really a developer. I don't even write code, right? And I did follow those code snippets and sections, and I think following that structure. So, no, absolutely cool stuff. And, you know, what good demo, right? Under the circumstances, and, you know, given that you were saying, you know, meant to be like for in person.
I'm going to tweet a photo of my setup, because I'm not allowed in my study because it's next door to where my daughter sleeps, and it's too late at night. So I'm in this Jerry. Anyway, it's funny. Anyway, yeah.
No, good. No, thanks for you know being part of M365 UK and delivering this great session. Just going to probably give some couple of minutes for questions to come through. I guess just before, we got a question from Simon Thompson. What did you sacrifice to the demo gods to make that work?
ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's the future, right? No, good. I think, look, I had a question, I think, around this, because again, just going back to this overall M365 and, you know, limited constraints and resource constraints in the IT departments, unless you're a large organization where you have dedicated developer resource and so on. How do you kind of pave that way? So, you know, like, not from an IT pro necessarily, but, you know, the developer's point of view, how do you actually get into that to make it to make a meal of it, basically, you know, because it is absolutely good stuff what you just showed there.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because everybody wants it packaged. Everybody wants like a packaged solution. So, like, yes, we could take what I just did and we could package it and turn it into something you could download from Azure or somewhere like that. The issue will be that the first company you take it to is like, well, actually, we kind of want it to look a bit like that, or we want it to go in our portal and our thing. So it is tricky for that reason. I mean, could Microsoft do it with enough money and time? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the way that SharePoint has evolved into like a very customizable thing. I think it would be good to see, I'm sort of thinking out loud really, but actually maybe some kind of SharePoint parts that are some of that, like SharePoint parts that, you know, wrap some of that UI stuff. And I think there's some stuff coming. I can't remember if that's announced or not. But anyway, there's something coming there, I think, to make some of this stuff easier. But yeah, you're right. It is a bit inaccessible unless you're like a Debbie dev right now.
Right. Okay. Now,
the answer is you hire a developer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to get your thoughts on that. So, you know, absolutely. I think it's and it's also down to these use cases, isn't it? How much of that really means that interactivity between the customer and the organization. So, look, I think Yeah, I think this is good. Looking forward to it. I think more, and I think for the attendees, I think some of you probably already follow Tom, so I think those great links that you just mentioned of that, so that'll be good. And yeah, if you just Tom put the link in the chat window, that'll be great. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah, so okay, well, I think once again, thanks Tom for being here and giving up your time and effort, and I look forward to seeing you soon in the near future at some conference. And so yeah, now we can see we got Leon on the screens as well. So this is our final session for the evening, and so this is a great session again. Quite close to myself as well with regards from the SharePoint background. But yeah, I think Microsoft Syntex. This is all about our content AI. So essentially, kind of picking up our files that's all over the place, trying to learn from it and classifying it, and obviously key meaningful data that's inside those documents, be able to extract, as some of us tend to call that metadata, which let's face it, not everyone likes to fill in the blanks, right, for for some of those documents. So at least Syntex is there to intelligently help us get there and still be able to provide that extra value in other areas of even security and compliance. So yeah, look, welcome, Leon. Really great to have you here, and I think we try to kind of bring you in before, and I think we had some issues with strikes and all that stuff. So I'm glad you're here today, and great to see you.
No, thank you. Yeah, good to be here, and yeah, thanks for the invite. Yeah, hopefully one day we'll get to do it at the reactor.
Yeah, we will.
We won't have train strikes or tube strikes or any sort of strikes. But yeah,
no, take it away. Over to you, by the way. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, first of all, there's been some great sessions today. I really learned lots from Lee's and then Tom's. I was like, yeah, it was. You need like a multi-dimensional mind to figure out so you don't cut yourself off midway through when you're doing team sessions within team sessions. So yeah, I was very impressed, that was a really good session. So today, it's been the day of AI, but yeah, really, AI has been. I'll just share my screen, but really. Hold on a second. There we go. Let me share. But yeah, really, AI has been the flavor of the past. Yeah, a flavor of 2023. Really, you can't avoid it. Like ChatGPT, OpenAI, and then some further announcements today with Microsoft 365 Copilot, and there's also GPT-4 coming out, and apparently, although they didn't announce it, that is going to generate videos. So I was banking on that today to be able to play you a pre-recorded video of my presentation. I just typed in and said, do me a presentation on supercharge your content processing with AI. But AI's not there yet. So about me, I'm Lynn Armston. I'm a M365 solutions architect at Intelligy. I'm living in Leamington Spa at the moment, but you can find some links about where I blog, tweet, LinkedIn, and GitHub. I've been working with Microsoft Syntex and Content AI for about, since its early days of development, when it was before it was even Project Cortex. So I've had quite a lot of dealings with the product team, and it's been interesting to see it develops, and that plays into my background is probably, I think it's nearly 12 years now of working with SharePoint. So SharePoint on premise, up until the cloud day. So yeah, my heart is in SharePoint. So yeah, I really loved it when SharePoint Syntex came in, and now yeah, it's Microsoft Syntex, and bringing people's information, that data, into life and turning into good actionable knowledge. So today, I just want to give a quick intro to Microsoft's Syntex, the current state of Syntex. So yeah, since October last year, there was a lot of announcements at Ignite about Microsoft Syntex being a big deal. I want to touch upon the current state of AI, give some real world use cases for Microsoft Syntex and learning. So show some of the things that we've done with Microsoft Syntex where it's been powerful. Demo and discussion, and find out more. So Microsoft Syntex, as Chirag already said, it is about in SharePoint, getting value from your content. It's often reading the files, tagging the files, the work that people don't want to do, either reliably, they don't want to do it full stop, so you're doing the work that they don't want to do. So typically an organization, they've got lots of files within their SharePoint or their file shares, for example. So but often people work on content, so a content lifecycle. So maybe a bill will come in, and then maybe they'll send a letter to say that they paid it, or a payment receipt. So it's content is producing content. So and then it's hard to find the files. So we touched upon metadata with files. So people don't tag files. So it's often very hard to find a report for a specific, I don't know, I'm doing a bit of work with engineering engineering companies at the moment, so like reservoirs, to tag to a particular reservoir, and also people don't know what their files are, so perhaps they don't know that they're sharing high top secret files, for example, or they're being shared externally. Some quick facts about M365 at the moment. So there's 1.6 billion documents a day added to M365, 130 billion terabytes of unstructured content by 2025. So this is mainly just content stored as is, maybe in hundreds of levels of folders in SharePoint. So people are not able to find the information unless they're good at search, or they click within files. So, and that's costing. So SharePoint was one of the most expensive storage mechanisms. So it's costing people storage to because they keep generating these files and adding to it. So if you're putting content on SharePoint, you want to get value from it. You want to empower your employees. So Microsoft's vision, Content AI utilizes advancement in cloud and AI to transform how content is created, processed, and discovered. So empower your people and automate those workflows at scale. So it's putting people at the center, with content seamlessly integrated into collaboration and workflows, turning that content from a cost into an advantage. So as I alluded, it's an expensive storage mechanism. So turn that information from a cost into an advantage. And then Syntex can automatically read, tag, and indexes high volume of content and connects it where it's needed. And then it manages your content throughout its life cycle with robust analytics, security, and automated retention. So you can apply retention labels and sensitivity labels as well. I've updated this roadmap a bit, but this was published in October last year when Microsoft Syntex was born. So as you can see, there's still a lot coming in 2023, but primarily at the moment, when it was SharePoint Syntex, it was about processing documents and getting doing stuff with those documents. But like now if we come down to like the coming 2023, we've got stuff like image tagging, summarization, transcription, translation, e-signature. I'm really excited for that one to come, because we've had to build solutions with third-party providers, so it'd be nice to have that natively within a SharePoint document library. And then this one came up. They're doing site level backup and restore under the Syntex brand, and like archiving of sites. So if you're using lots of storage, you can move some archive sites to lower powered storage that's cheaper. But there's now like 4 pillars to Syntex. There's enhance, connect, manage, and build. But it was primarily just enhance. So there's a whole heap of new stuff coming. So very exciting roadmap. And I don't know what's as well, like what is coming with the integration with ChatGPT and OpenAI, because I haven't been told anything about that, but I can imagine summarization that they said might come in Microsoft Syntex will now maybe come under Copilot, or I don't know. So I'm really interested to hear about that coming up soon. So the current state of Syntex, so it started off, like I said, as document processing. So this is an unstructured document processing. You have 2 concepts to when you create a model. You target a model to a particular type of document type. So this model I've created, it's for targeting service agreements, so contracts. So you first train the AI model to identify what a service agreement looks like. So this particular model is only triggered on service agreements. It's not triggered on reports or invoices or another document type. One of the key benefits of Syntex is traditional AI models have been, you had to train them with hundreds of files, but Syntex, you do the training with just five, well, a minimum of 5 files, 4 positive and 1 negative example. But sometimes I tend to say 5 to 10 documents. So once we've classified the file, we've picked out the service agreement, we can then create extractors to pull information from the document. So we will mark on our documents what we're looking for with the AI. So here we're looking to extract the client name. So we've got we've highlighted the client name, and we've said like the client name always has a prefix of between. And then we could have another rule that it always occurs before the word of, for example. So, and the AI we can also do anywhere in the file, or only look at the top section of the file. So we have quite a bit of control. So for this rule, we can tailor it. So unstructured documents are documents that are various length documents. So they might be a consulting agreement that's 1 page, that's 10 pages, but we're always looking for a client that's always perhaps before the word between, or the fee amount is £20,000. So we're always looking for that money amount, and it's always like before the word fee amount. Or a regular expression, we're always looking for an email. We can we have quite a bit of control. yeah, typically letters or contracts. We then have a structured document processing model, which is powered by AI Builder. And this model type, we're, as the name suggests, more structured. So we're always looking for the date that's always going to be in the top left-hand corner. We're always looking for the invoice number that's always in the top middle. Now there's a new model called the freeform document processing model. So I have this example here, and it's similar to the structured document processing model, but it's for documents that are the same but have various different formats. So we can see here we've got two rental agreements, one on the right-hand side that's in tabular formats, one that's in the left-hand side that's in paragraph, but they still contain the same fields, so landlord, tenant. So we train the AI with still with like 5 to 10 different formats, but then it will like learn for like if you throw a different format at it, then yeah, it will start to learn that yeah, the tenant is likely to be beside the tenant, or yeah, the tenant in this type of agreement is always near like the word tenant. So the AI yeah, learns how to discover the files. So we do have some pre-built models as well. So there is a receipts model. So yeah, here's my Tesco's order. I was a bit hungry that day. I had about 5 meal deals, it looks like. I think I was buying lunch for the office. But yeah, this is pre-trained to extract common receipt fields. So you could use this to do your expenses and yeah, pick out the information. Invoices as well. And then there is a new, well, no, it's not new now. It was January last year. There's now the ability in Syntex to create documents using an existing document. So with this service agreement, we can mark placeholders and yeah, then map them to SharePoint list fields or manual entry. So you could create yeah, personalized yeah, service agreements. One of the new features of Syntex was yeah, quite recently, about a month ago, is they allow, if you've got a Syntex license, it allows you to do universal annotation, so annotate documents, so you can draw on the file to like highlight some key figures, and then yeah, get one of your colleagues to look at it and say, yeah, these are the key figures, like yeah, go and put this in a report, for example. That's supported on PDF and TIFF files, but the key thing is the original file is not modified, so it stores its the annotations in to be technical, it stores it in the comments, which is yeah, in the graph, but the original file is not modified, so yeah, the overlays are stored in the comments. Some other Syntex features, so yeah, there's a lot more, but yeah, as I touched upon, you can apply sensitivity and retention labels. There is Power Automate actions, so when, like, say, a report is processed by the report model in Syntex, we could then do something in Power Automate. And then we have Power Automate actions for creating documents using Syntex content assembly. There was a whole heap of improvements for SharePoint for content type syndication for Syntex, because every Syntex model is a content type along with the content assembly models. And they also improved and modernized the managed metadata service. And there's a whole heap of PowerShell commandlets as well. So what we're finding with Syntex is, I think I touched upon it earlier, was many organizations are not paper, file driven. So they'll receive a file, they'll then create another file because of that, like for the information. So typically, like that's part of the typical content lifecycle. So we talk about this, a bank might receive a loan application or something. That's uploaded to SharePoint. That will probably trigger a Syntex model that will then be triggered for the loan application. Then we'll extract some metadata from it, like the amount of the loan requested, who it is, their address perhaps, and then Syntex will label the files. So it will label it to say, like, this invoice is this loan amount is for 50,000. Then now the files are enriched with metadata. We can then do search. We could search for the high value loan applications, and then we can then maybe do a review of that. So maybe we've triggered a workflow to say this contract's over. Loan application is over 50,000, and then that needs to go to CEO approval. Once the CEO's approved, we can then perhaps create a contract to say, yes, we're going to give you this loan, please fill in this contract. That goes out to the external people, and then that maybe comes back in the organization when it's signed, and then a Syntex model will pick it up, and we can start another workflow and keep going around and around the loop. So the current state of AI, lots going on. So Microsoft Syntex is content AI in the flow of SharePoint mainly, and then you've got OpenAI. So you've got started coming to the public knowledge as GPT-3, which is generative pre-trained transformer. GPT 3.5, that spawned ChatGPT, that got everyone excited. Now there's ChatGPT 4, and then DALL, Google AI, and Microsoft 365 Copilot that was announced today. So I want to draw your attention to this statement that Chirag Patel said today about AI. So sometimes Copilot will get it right. Other times it will be usefully wrong, giving you an idea that's not perfect, but it gives you a head start. So I found that quite relatable. So the work that I've been doing with AI, especially ChatGPT and co, is sometimes it does get it right, but other times it's gets you like 80% of the way, or the wording's not quite right, so you then have to go and edit it. So probably AI will get better, but at the moment I find AI to be quite primitive. Maybe not so much Syntex. Like Syntex is more rules driven, and it's more reliable, but definitely the ChatGPT stuff, it will often give you an idea to get started, but you need to add your personal touch. So I don't think we're going to be losing our jobs at the moment, but I think in the future we'll probably, I don't know how long, it's going to take, but I think yeah, we'll always be AI checkers. I believe for the foreseeable future. So Google AI stole a march on Microsoft, and they've got AI coming to Gmail, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides. So that's Google Docs, their Office application. So similar stuff to what Microsoft have promised. So draft and summarize and prioritize your Gmail, brainstorm, proofread, write documents. Yeah, bring your creative vision to life and generate images and videos. So yeah, they got in before Microsoft by 2 days. So we've got hot off the press. So Copilot, I've added this today. I'm not going to read through everything, but basically they're bringing AI to Microsoft Office. So in Word, it's going to be able to take instructions and write and edit and summarize. Copilot in PowerPoint, apparently we don't use nearly 80% of the features of PowerPoint. So yeah, it's going to be good to go, can you do me this presentation, put an animation on each slide, and it will go and do that. Copilot in Excel, yeah, you're going to be able to do analysis on spreadsheets and maybe help with formulas. Copilot in Excel, in Outlook, sorry. I found that to be really good because that's going to be able to help you to write emails from bullet points in Teams, in Power Platform, and Business Chat, like bringing together all your documents. And yeah, I'm excited by Business Chat. So yeah, we could summarize documents which might be borrowed from the Syntex family, or Syntex is going to use that for example. I found this in animation really good. So we're going to be able to add people to Copilot, add Copilot, and say, write me a letter. And yeah, we see there. So we've produced an email just from a little instruction. Basically, this is the high level architecture of Copilot. It's going to call from your Microsoft 365 apps. Microsoft 365 is going to be a processor that's going to call to graph for the files that you're working on and all the security and all that goodness, the richness. And then that's going to go to these large language processing models, which is Microsoft's, I believe, fork of like ChatGPT. And then that's going to bring back the answer to the processor via the graph and to the app. But yes, this is hot off the press, so I can't remember too much about it. But that's the summary architecture. So now I want to talk about some of my real world use cases that I've done with Microsoft Syntex, and yes, some of my learnings. So one of my main use cases for Microsoft Syntex is to bring those repositories of company information to life with Syntex. So yeah, lots of organizations will have huge file shares. We'll have probably they're not organized. Probably, like I said, lots of folders. So we can train Syntex models to pick out the high value documents and information about those documents. So I've done a lot of work with engineering companies, so drawing plans. So we've scanned. So one of my organizations I've worked with, they had 2 million drawing plans in a physical library. So this is a physical library. This is a brick building that had 2 million plans within it and had actual librarians. They digitized all of their plans, and then we wrote Syntex models to to pick out information from the plans about like the location, the number, the date, etc., and then build a search experience using that metadata. So the end result is now the engineers don't need to go to the physical library to get the files. They can get them all on their tablets and do searches. So they could rock up at a reservoir, for example, and get the plan of like a pump building, for example. We've had some good success with dictation reports. So we've trained Syntex to pick out phrases from the engineers. So the engineers have gone to site, dictated what they're doing, and then that's output to a PDF, and then we've had Syntex crawling that crawling that document to pick out key figures from those documents. We've had success with contracts and agreements, so scanning contracts and agreements and invoices, all doing the work that people don't want to do. So people don't want to read a contract, and well, they should do if they're a law firm, but people don't want to read contracts to pick out figures. So we get our AI to do that. So we've got, it's been good for picking out figures from statements of work, reading forms, timesheets, and also as a migration tool. So like I've said, classifications, we can pick out a report, and then we've then once we've picked out the reports, we've then migrated them to another location. So once they're tagged with the report content type, we can route them off. Content assembly, document generation, we've had success with creating contracts, letters, statements, reports, and checklists. So I like to say that now there's endless possibilities. So your documents are generated with metadata. You can now do reporting with Power BI. So you can point that Power BI at a document library that's perhaps got invoices in, and we can do reports on where the invoices have come from, the amounts, for example. We've got business process automation. So we've got Power Automate triggers or Logic App triggers. So when a report is identified, do something, get CEO approval. One of our main things is search solutions. So these files are decorated with metadata. Let's refine by company or reservoir, for example. And we've also had success with creating content as a result of Syntex. So a contract comes in, we'll produce we'll scan it with Syntex, we'll pick information about that contract, and then we'll generate them a payment receipt or a letter to them to say, yes, this has been approved. And also you can, from Syntex, create topics pages from Viva Topics. So if so maybe they've got a company's term store. So with all the companies that they work with, if they start working with a new company, Syntex can add to a new term store if it identifies a new company name, and then we can create Viva Topics. And Viva Topics, lights up well, in my experience, Viva Topics, I'm not going to talk much about Viva Topics, but it lights up very well when files are enriched with metadata. So you can create topics pages to crawl all the information in your tenant and perhaps have like a topics page per company. So if you're a sales company, you can have a topics page for each client that you work with, and then a new person can join the organization and see information about that client, for example. Okay, so I'll just give a bit of a demo now about some Syntex and OpenAI functionality.
Quick question, yeah, if that's all right. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
I think we got Tom's hand up. Maybe he has a question. Tom?
Just when you talk about use cases, I just wondered, have you seen anybody doing anything, or have you done anything with migrating legacy computer applications? Like, it was a kind of theoretical thing I know people are talking about. I've never done it, I've ever seen it done, where like people are literally taking screenshots of old legacy Windows apps, feeding them to Syntax. It's picking out the fields and be like, oh, I can make a Power App that looks like that, and using that for like bring some of those legacy apps off.
No, I haven't done anything like that. Like, I think, it'd be possible if you do your scan to identify text. I think it would. It's a good.
I mean,
there's
rubbish like cruddy app, like CRUD, just like data in sort of input. They like the old legacy apps that every organization has.
No,
it'd be interesting one to try out.
I think it would be quite structured, because it'd probably have a command before that we could pick the text that appears after that. But no, I haven't done anything like that. But that's sounds like a good possible use case, or maybe it's an AI builder thing to do that, and maybe Syntex is not the thing.
Yeah, cool.
Or it's a ChatGPT 4. Like, I saw an example yesterday. Someone had written a website on like a napkin, like an idea for a website, and then it went away and done that. So maybe
interesting. Yeah.
And produce like a fully featured website. So maybe that's a ChatGPT 4 thing. Is there any more questions, or
No, we're good. Go for it.
Yeah. I don't know what we've showed about OpenAI before, but there are a lot of OpenAI endpoints that you can hit. So there's a whole heap of sections. So we can do summarize for a second grader, grammar correction. There's a whole heap. We can emulate a text conversation. So I think there's recipe creator, so you can give it your ingredients, say I've got all of this ingredients in the fridge, please make me a recipe to use that. So all of these endpoints you can sign up, get an API key, and then start to call them if you want to. What time am I finishing, Chirag? I'm just wary that we are running a little bit late, aren't we?
No, that's okay. We got some time.
Yeah.
Okay. 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. Thank you. So we'll go on to Microsoft Syntex now. I'll go into a fully featured content center at the moment. So a content center is a specific type of SharePoint site, and this is where it stores your AI models for content processing. So we can see I've got a lot of different models here. So I'll show you let's go and do the service agreements, because we already saw that before. So we've trained our classifier by giving 5 positive examples. So we've uploaded some example files and we've said, yes, this is a service agreement. No, this is not a service agreement. So we've done the training part there, the classification. So the model should trigger on a service agreement. We can then add entity extractors. So we want to pull out some key values from that service agreement. So we've done client, contractor, fee amount, contract services. So we go into the clients, we can see we went into our AI and labeled what the client looked like. And then we went into this one and labeled Contoso Inc. as that one, or Adventure Work Cycles. So we've trained it, and yeah, we've got a prefix and a suffix. So yeah, we've got the prefix as between, we saw that example there, but we've got all sorts of fine tuning. So we could say it always appears, the client always appears at the beginning of the file, or it always appears at the end or in the middle, for example, or yeah, we're looking for a phrase with exact capitalization or numbers, for example. So we have a lot of tuning that we can do, and then we've got the suffix of there, and then we can test our model to see what it would pick out with like a new file that it's not picked out. So we do all of the entity extraction, and then we can push it out to a library. So we can add it to any library that we want, and then add the files to it. So if I go to my Microsoft Syntex demo area, we can see the service agreements here. So what the end result is of that model is when a file is added to this library, the service agreement model is triggered, but not if we add a file that is not a service agreement. And then we can see all these metadata values that have been extracted. So yeah, let's just delete these files, and let's go to service agreements, and let's just drag these files here. So it takes up to half an hour for the files to be processed. It's usually quite quicker, usually within a couple of minutes. So we'll go back and revisit them. But we can see on this site that there's lots of different libraries, and this is each library has a different type of model, but we can apply a unstructured model to the same. So you can add many unstructured models to a different library. So the report model will only be triggered on reports, but maybe there's invoices in there too. So we'll just refresh that. It's not been triggered yet. And then I wanted to show you, we'll go back to the model center, to the content center. And it's drawing plans. So as I mentioned, I've been doing quite a bit of work with drawing companies, and yeah, their engineering, like big A1 sheets of paper that have now been digitized. So if I go into this and edit this model, I'll show you what a drawing plan looks like. Apologies, it's a little bit slow because the drawing plans are like quite high definition. They are so they're quite large file types to load. So this engineering company, they deal with lots of different architects. So these are the names of architects. So we can have one model that has many different variations of plans, for example. So we split them into collections. So this is, if we look at this, I was wanting some some demo files that were of interest to me, but also freely available. And so I decided to download a lot of football, like new football stadiums that are being built. So they're all on like the local council website, and it's a little bit slow, but let's just zoom in. So what we wanted to do here was we wanted to pick out the status, we wanted to pick out the revision number and the drawing title. So we've highlighted them, trained our AI model, and then I'll show you how this then appears within the library. So we've got a drawing plans, and then we can see that all these drawing plans have been tagged with metadata and revision number. We get a preview of them. Now let's show you some things that we've done in search. So I've got here a search experience. So all of these, this is using the PnP modern search, but all of these different tabs are displaying information that has been processed by Syntex. And we can see, say for like the fee amount that's been extracted from this service agreement, we can do filtering to show only the high value contracts that are, say, over 12,500, for example. So this is we've not done too much customization. Same again with receipts. So these are split over all different like project sites, and we're using Syntex to bring them all together, and they can say click on the link and go to the site, see the document within the site, for example. But I wanted to show you drawings. So we've done a little bit of customization here. So with PnP search, you can use a tab. You only have a limited amount of screen real estate here. So Syntex can extract as many metadata fields as you want, but you've only got a limited amount of space here, so you're not going to be able to go all the way across to show all the fields. So what we like to do is like have a more info screen here, and like we can show more metadata fields here. And then I'll try and pick a small size document, because we've got a preview here, so they can go into the document and see the metadata, see a preview of the document there. What I've also been doing using ChatGPT is Syntex has a content assembly Power Automate action. So this is using ChatGPT free, but using the text to summarize. So I can give it some text to summarize, and then it will generate a document using Microsoft Syntex. So let's just give that a go. Let's just go to the random paragraph generator. Let's just copy that text, and this is really primitive, so we could have this in a Power App or something like that, but I've just given it a text of a bit of text, and now we're going to run this flow. And let's see if the demo gods work okay. So we're now going to hopefully generate a document using Microsoft Syntex. So now if I go back to my Microsoft Syntex library, I can refresh this library. Sorry, it's down the bottom a few seconds ago here. So here's the generated document that we created here. So it's good. Yeah, this is so the original text. I rented a car and reserved a hotel. We'll drive to Las Vegas, and then the summarized text saying, "It sounds like you have a great plan. Here are some activities." So yeah, relatively useful, but yeah, I still feel it's not accurately, well, not summarized as well as could be. Here's some of the syntax annotation features. So yeah, now this document's in syntax. I could highlight and say, no, this stuff is to be ignored. That's the important stuff, for example, and yeah, that stays with the document, and we can brush. We can change the color. We can change the thickness, for example. So I'll just quickly come back to my presentation and give you some steps to find out more about Syntex. There is the Microsoft 365 assessment tool. You can set the Syntex assessments tool to scan your environment as to find good areas for Syntex, good use cases for Syntex. Highly recommend running that and getting the reports. Will show you good areas that will work well with Syntex automation. Here's an example of it. So it'll be Syntex is good for existing libraries that use lots of metadata columns. So normally you're relying on users to enter those metadata fields, but you could perhaps create a Syntex model to to do that metadata entry for you. There's some template sites on the SharePoint lookbook, so you can it gives you a helping start to get going with Syntex and some guidance. The contract management template, so that provides a good story from generating contracts to receiving contracts to processing to payment with like approval and Teams app. That's quite a good contract. And a few more steps, a few more links here on how to get started with Syntex or the Syntex roadmap. And there's a PnP repository for Syntex samples as well. And I like to blog about every new piece of Syntex functionality. So you can follow my blog on leonarmston.com, or if you want to connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or GitHub, or I work for IntelliJ, and we do quite a bit with content AI. Okay, so is there any questions? Otherwise, thank you all very much for attending my presentation.
Excellent, Leon. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Good session, good demos, and in fact, all 3 sessions today, slick demos. Love it, and good participation as well, and the comments and reactions. So some interesting nuggets, I think, over there. I think comment from Nikki as well. Fantastic for records management. That bit that was going just before the Power Automate. I think that was quite good. But I think any questions from the attendees and anybody, then please feel free to unmute and fire away. But super Syntex stuff there.
Thank you.
Just while you're thinking about the questions, I've also posted a couple of links there as well. So the links to the slides and the videos, the session recording will be available sometime this weekend. If you haven't already, please do fill out the feedback. It's only about 3 or 4 questions, and certainly I think for the speakers, anyways, it at least helps them to improve or add more to their content for their sessions. So would really appreciate that if you could do that. And I think as ever, I think thanks for giving up your time and effort, Leon, to be here, just like all the speakers. And Yeah.
Thank
so-
you. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
So yeah, it's a very, very exciting roadmap in not just the Microsoft Syntex space, but yeah, the whole content AI space and the compliance story. So yeah, I think there's a Purview and Syntex story. So Syntex identifying these documents and then applying sensitivity and retention label, and then a search story. And then, as I said, the AI story, the open AI, the GPT integration, not just for Syntex, is going crazy.
Absolutely. That's good stuff. Look, and I think, by the way, also thanks for including that quite a bit of detail around the Microsoft 365 Copilot, some of the info from that came out today. So that's really useful. So thanks for that. And I think what we'll do is we'll probably just start to wrap up now. I think just gone slightly over, but I think attendees knows where you are. So I think just want to say big thanks to all our attendees for taking your time out and being here for this almost like a special edition. From 6 to around 9. Normally, like I say, we do it for 4 to 6 here in the UK. So I think with that, what we'll do is we'll just sort of post the links out, like I mentioned. So please stay tuned with the Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. And then obviously look out for that. So other than that, just want to wish you a very good evening. Once again, thanks to all our speakers, Lee Ford, Tom Morgan, and Leon Armston for what I think was a brilliant evening today. So until then, take care of yourselves, and I think hope to catch you soon, sometime, somewhere soon. So take care. Thank you.
Thank you.